The passenger. It was a late autumn night, and I was driving home from a friend's house. The highway was deserted, the surroundings bathed in an eerie silence, punctuated only by the occasional rustling of wind through the skeletal trees. As I approached a sharp bend in the road, my headlights caught a figure standing by the side of the highway. A young woman, rain-soaked and looking forlorn, her thumb outstretched in the universal signal for a hitchhiker. I'm usually cautious about picking up strangers, but something about her vulnerability tugged at my conscience. I pulled over and rolled down the window. "Need a ride?" I asked. She looked at me with wide, desperate eyes. "Yes, please. Just to the next town." I unlocked the doors and she climbed in, her teeth chattering from the cold. As we continued our journey, I offered her my jacket, which she gratefully accepted. She introduced herself as Emily, explaining that she'd had a fight with her boyfriend and had been left stranded. We made small talk as the miles rolled by, and I found myself warming to her. She was polite and articulate, her voice tinged with a sadness that I couldn't quite place. Soon, however, I noticed something odd. Whenever I glanced at her through the rearview mirror, her reflection seemed distorted, her features blurry and indistinct. I blamed it on the rain-streaked glass and my own fatigue, but the nagging feeling persisted. As we neared the town, Emily's demeanor changed. She grew quiet and tense, her eyes fixed on the road ahead. "Can you drop me off at the old bridge?" she asked, her voice trembling. "The old bridge?" I repeated, surprised. "That place has been abandoned for years." "It's where I need to go," she insisted, her eyes pleading. Feeling uneasy but wanting to help, I agreed. We drove in silence, the rain pounding on the roof, the atmosphere growing heavy and oppressive. When we finally reached the old bridge, Emily turned to me, her face pale and drawn. "Thank you for helping me," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know what I would have done without you." She handed me a small locket, her hands shaking. "Please take this. It's a token of my gratitude." I tried to refuse, but she insisted, her eyes filled with a desperate urgency. I took the locket, touched by her gesture, and watched as she stepped out of the car and walked towards the bridge, disappearing into the darkness. I drove away, my mind reeling from the strange encounter. The weight of the locket in my pocket was a tangible reminder of the mysterious passenger and her sad, haunted eyes. The next day, curiosity got the better of me, and I decided to investigate the old bridge. It had been closed for decades, a relic of a bygone era, its wooden planks rotting, its metal beams rusted. As I explored the area, I stumbled upon an old newspaper clipping, weathered and faded, hidden in the underbrush. It told the story of a tragic accident that had occurred on the bridge many years ago. A young couple had been involved in a car crash, their vehicle plummeting into the river below. The man had survived, but the woman, named Emily, had drowned. Her body never recovered. My blood ran cold as I read the article, my mind racing. The locket, the girl, her desperate plea to be taken to the bridge. Had I given a ride to a ghost? I opened the locket, and inside I found a picture of Emily. The same sad eyes staring back at me, her face frozen in time. For weeks I was haunted by the experience, the image of Emily and the old bridge etched into my mind. I returned to the bridge several times, half expecting to see her again, but it remained silent and abandoned, a monument to a tragedy long forgotten. The locket now sits on my mantle, a constant reminder of that fateful night and the mysterious passenger who crossed my path. A reminder that the world is filled with unexplained mysteries, and that sometimes the most ordinary of encounters can lead us down a path to the extraordinary. So, as we sit by this campfire, let us remember that the open road holds many secrets, and that sometimes the people we meet along the way may not be what they seem. Sometimes they may be echoes of a past long gone, reaching out for one last connection, one last ride home. The Hitchhiker's Warning. I was never one to believe in ghost stories. Science was always my guiding light. But there's one event in my life that I can't explain, a story that sends shivers down my spine to this very day. Years ago, while driving home late at night, I found myself on a deserted highway. A thick mist had settled in, reducing visibility. The radio was playing some old tunes, my only companion in that eerie silence. Suddenly, I noticed a figure standing by the side of the road. A young woman, drenched from the rain, thumb outstretched, pleading for a ride. I'm typically cautious, but something about her seemed desperate, vulnerable. I pulled over and offered her a lift. She thanked me with a weak smile and got into the back seat. Her clothes were outdated, as if from another era, and she looked incredibly pale. I chalked it up to the cold and her evident distress. She said her name was Emily, and that she needed to get to the old Redwood Bridge, just a few miles away. I agreed to take her, and we drove in silence, the raindrops creating a rhythmic pattern on the roof. When I tried to engage her in conversation, her answers were brief, her eyes fixed on the road ahead. She seemed unnaturally preoccupied with something. As we approached the bridge, Emily suddenly became agitated. "Stop the car!" she exclaimed. I slammed on the brakes and she jumped out, her eyes wide with terror. "Don't cross the bridge tonight. Promise me," she begged, her voice quaking. I assured her I wouldn't, though I had no idea why she was so distressed. She thanked me and ran off into the night, disappearing into the fog. Puzzled, I turned the car around and decided to take the long way home. Emily's strange warning weighed on my mind, but I soon attributed it to the stress of the night and her apparent hardship. The next morning, curiosity got the best of me. I drove back to the bridge, and what I found made my blood run cold. There, at the entrance to the bridge, was a memorial, a plaque, flowers, photographs, all dedicated to a young woman who had died in a car accident on that very bridge. Her name? Emily Johnson. I couldn't believe my eyes. The picture on the memorial was the same girl I had given a ride to the previous night. I rushed to the local library, desperate to learn more. I found old newspaper clippings about the accident. It had happened 30 years ago on a rainy, foggy night, just like the one I had experienced. Emily had been hitchhiking home when a car had picked her up. The car crashed on the bridge, and she died on the spot. The articles went on to mention that other drivers had reported picking up a hitchhiker fitting Emily's description over the years, always on foggy nights, always with the same warning about the bridge. I was stunned, unable to comprehend what I had read. Had I really encountered the ghost of Emily Johnson? Had she somehow reached across the veil of death to warn me? And if so, why? Days turned into weeks, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something more was at play. I continued to dig into the past, uncovering more about the bridge's history. What I found was a pattern of accidents, all occurring on foggy nights, all at the same spot. I began to realize that Emily's warnings weren't just random acts of a restless spirit. They were deliberate attempts to prevent others from meeting the same fate. But why had she chosen me? Why had I seen her when others hadn't? The answer came when I stumbled upon a letter written by Emily's mother to a local newspaper. It detailed Emily's love for photography, her fascination with capturing the beauty of the world, her dreams and ambitions. I understood then. Emily had reached out to me, not because of some random cosmic connection, but because we shared a passion, a common thread that bound us across time and space. Emily's story stayed with me, a haunting reminder of the mysteries that lie beyond our understanding. I often find myself driving by the old Redwood Bridge, half expecting to see her standing there, thumb outstretched, eyes filled with a warning. As you listen to this tale, remember that the world is filled with wonders and terrors that defy explanation. Sometimes, those we think are lost reach out to us in ways we can't comprehend. And if you ever find yourself on a foggy road near an old bridge and you see a young woman hitchhiking, heed her warning. She might just be saving your life, connecting with you in a way that transcends life and death. For Emily's ghost is not one of vengeance or malice. It's one of compassion, a lingering presence that seeks to protect and warn, a spirit eternally bound to a place of tragedy, reaching out to those who can see, those who can hear, those who can feel.